Seaman First Class Edward J. Olsen. Interviewer is Carol Kleber. Seaman First Class, do you wish to give this interview to the archives or retain the copyrights?
I wish to retain the copyrights.
Want to tell us about the war?
Well, you want this here with my ship? Well, anyway, I went to Sampson, New York, a boot camp. And then I got out of Sampson, I went by troop train to San Pedro, New York, California, where I picked up my ship. I was a commissioning crew on the Norton Sound, which means the first crew that came aboard the ship. And after that there we sailed to Pearl Harbor in, what was it, February 27th, 45. We were in Pearl Harbor, and then we left Pearl Harbor and we went to Wantagh. And then after Wantagh we went to Guam, Saipan, and then we ended up in Camerata. There was an island 20 miles south of Okinawa. When we were in there, the kamikazes were attacking these different ships. While we were in there, 4 ships were hit, 5 ships were hit with kamikazes, one the Curtis. Tokyo Rose said that if Norton Sound doesn't get out of Okinawa 24 hours, we would never leave Okinawa. Within 24 hours, the Curtis was hit, and then the kamikaze came towards us and missed, and changed his mind the last minute and turned to another ship and hit the water before he hit the other ship. So we had a lot of general quarters, and the Japs used to like to attack us in the morning, in the afternoon, at night rather, so we didn't get much rest. At one instance, we used to have a deal where we could go ashore and you can't drink alcohol aboard a ship. So we went to an island, you go to an island and have some beer. This one ship crew went to an island, and the Japanese was supposed to be secure. The Japanese came out and killed 3 of them, 4 of them. His commander was bayoneted, and he didn't even get his gun out. I seen him brought aboard ship. And then the Navy got mad and told the Army they better do something about it. So the Army was fighting coming to these different islands that surrounded us, and were fighting with the Japs. And we were able to sit by at night and watch the tracer bullets flying all over the place, but not at us. But some of the stories there that we used to have movies every night, and in the hangar deck. And this one night we had a movie about the pirates, but they used to get the gunfighting with the out at sea there, the Seahawks or something like Royal Flynn. And every time we got to the part where the ships started firing at each other, the Japanese wanted to attack us. We had to go to general quarters, and this went on about 4 nights. Finally, they said after the general quarters, which was over about 12 o'clock at night, that if you want to watch the movies, you could watch the movies. So we all went back to the movies, and we were able to see the end of the movies until about 2 o'clock in the morning. But we were mostly stuck aboard ship all the time, and general quarters used to wear us down a lot, and then they never stopped with the bells. To this day I hear the bells like that, it kind of gets to me. But then after we left, the war was over, we went to Shimawan, and we were able to see the Japanese plane came in with the White Cross. It was a green fuselage, and it had the White Cross on it. They were going to fly into Philippines, but they were landing in Okinawa for the refueling. And after that we went to Sasebo, Japan, in occupation. Then we went to Shanghai, China, Hong Kong, Tsingtao, China. While we went in Tsingtao, while we were in Shanghai, we took on 100 and some odd Chinese nationalist sailors, and brought them up to Tsingtao so they could fight the communists, which I think the American people didn't know about this, and the guys were writing home and sending pictures, and the United States government was denying it because we were getting involved in a war with the communists, and we weren't supposed to be there. And after a while, the government had to admit that we were transporting Chinese nationalist troops, which stopped. But then we went back to Shanghai and that there and spent Christmas in Okinawa, and then we went back to Tokyo and had Liberty there, and then we left there and we went to Pearl Harbor. Then from Pearl Harbor we went to the Panama Canal, and then through the Panama Canal we came to Norfolk, Virginia. And my ship really, as a seaplane, tended to a squadron of PBM Martin Bombers. And we had the squadron, we housed the officers and enlisted men, and we took care of the planes, maintained the planes, and rearmed them for bombing missions and ammunition and all that stuff that we put on board them. The VVP 26 was the squadron that we took care of, and they had quite a record. They performed quite well, got themselves a lot of credit for medals and stuff like that there for bombing the Japanese. But that's about it, I believe.
You want to tell us something about your friends that you were in World War II with, your buddies? Do you remember their names and what happened to them?
Well, like Johnny Johnson, Kenny Olsen, after the war, we all separated. We went our separate ways, and I haven't heard. One fellow I heard from was Verne Wallace. He lived up in Maine. I seen him, and then another fellow I seen was George Nelson. I met him, and he asked me to sign a letter that he got his arm caught in a hoist, so he could put in for a disability with the VA, which I did, and certified that he had this injury in the Navy. But I really haven't. That's the only two fellows I ever really met since the war, since I got out.
How about girls?
Girls?
Did you meet any girls overseas?
Yeah, well, they were just, they were just here and there and everywhere. I mean, the girls were, we met girls there. There was a lot of girls and there's different places there. But you didn't bring them home, that's for sure.
How about your job? Can you give us some specifics about your job on ship? Well, what was your work day like?
Well, I was a deck crew. I took care of the, went up in the bow and the forecastle and cleaned we helped them sweep down the decks up there and wash them down and paint and chip and take care of all those different things. And during general quarters, I was in the 40 millimeter handling room, which they call it, underneath the quad 40. And then during watches, I stood watch on a twin 40. That means two barrels, whereas the other was 4 barrels. And then we used to stand lookout watches and boat duty. I was a crewman on a 30-foot motor launch, which I eventually became a coxswain. And I was in charge of it then. There was 3 men on it, a bow hook, engineer, and then the coxswain who stood in the back with the tiller, stern. But that was about it.
And superior officers?
Oh, our captain was Ben Scott Custer. He was a commander. He took over the command of the ship in Long Beach, California. And then he left the ship after the war, and we went back to the States and left us over there.
Have you any examples of good or bad leadership in superior officers?
No, it was all good. I mean, as a kid, I was 17. I had to gripe up against all officers, but as I grew older, I mean, I realized they had a job to do like I did. And I have no regrets with the officers.
How about souvenirs or war booty or anything to remind you of the war that you brought back with you?
Yeah, I brought a piece of bamboo about that big that was hand carved. I understand it's worth $1. It's a nice dollar. But then I brought home a Japanese flag. The Japs were supposed to write down the names of my friends and myself on it in Tokyo there, but I don't know if that was on names that he wrote on it. He might have wrote anything, but now it was silk, but now it's rotting away. But other than that, And then when I left the ship there, we were able to get Japanese rifles and bayonets. So I got a Japanese rifle and a bayonet. The Navy in Tokyo, the Army was destroying all the Japanese guns and everything and bringing them out to sea. And the Navy said, "Oh, our men never get the chance to get a souvenir. Can you let us take them?" And the Army said, "As long as you get them on the ship and get them out of here, we don't care what you do with them." So they brought all these guns and all these rifles and bayonets aboard ship there, and as you got discharged, they were given to you.
And what do you plan to do with your souvenirs from the war? How are you going to handle them?
Nothing, they just sit there. I don't do anything with them. In fact, I got a stick from a plane, a fighter plane there that was in the mud there. I picked that up. I don't know, it was from a kamikaze or one of our planes, but I got that too. But I gave it to my nephew up in New Hampshire. He brought it in to show and tell with the school there. But the rifle and the bayonet just stays there. It doesn't do anything.
How old is your nephew?
Oh, now at that time he was 11, but now he's a full-grown guy, adult.
And so when he was 11, what did he have to say? Did he have anything at all to say about the war?
No.
And today?
Oh, I haven't seen him in a long time. He didn't. No, but I got 3 sons, and 2 of them were in the Navy. One guy, my oldest son, is at 27 years in the Navy, retired as a lieutenant commander. And my other son, my younger son, he went 4 years in the Navy, come out as a petty fire control technician. He served on destroyers, and my oldest son served on nuclear submarines and cruisers. And then he worked on the shipyards, and now he's working on the shipyards on these nuclear subs and that there. He's chief engineer. So he's done well by the Navy. And my father was in the Navy during World War I. He was in the Navy same age I was. So I went in when I was 17, I come out at 19. He went in at 17 and come out at 19.
Can you tell us about him, his name and his rank? And
well, he was Custer Olsen. He was in the armed guard gun crews. He was a seaman first class like myself. As he said about my oldest son, he took 2-3 generations to get to be a petty officer in the family. But anyway, he served on these tankers bringing high octane gasoline over to Europe and that. So he was on destroyers too. So he served his time, and then I went in the Navy and served my time, and then my 2 boys served their time.
Has your father told you any stories about the war? Any particular?
My father?
Yes.
Oh yeah, he was on one of his, when they were going overseas there, he escorting, he was on a tanker, and they spotted a German submarine early in the morning there, and his gun jammed when they couldn't, so they put a shell into his conning tower, and the next day they heard that a British ship found it on the surface. They couldn't submerge and they sunk it, so they got credit for it. So my father was taken from a 6-inch gun down to a 3-inch gun. He was the gun captain in charge of the gun. But he went through with the tankers there. They were hit. They were going to blow up like mad. At one time he was going through Gibraltar there, and they had a searchlight. A lighthouse that was going back and forth, and as it came, it stopped and hit a ship. The Germans would torpedo it, and he says it just missed our ship by a couple of feet, and we were able to sneak through. And he says the hardest part was passing men that were in the water and yelling for help, and they couldn't stop. I had to keep going. But that there is one thing is. As I say about myself when I was in the service, when I got overseas during the war, I was young, dumb, and numb. Because the things that over there that you say as a 17-year-old, you see that you really become so numb about it, you don't think about it at all. They took us one time on an excursion to Surrey Castle in Okinawa when things calmed down. And that was loaded with old dead Japs. They didn't bury the Japs there, they just let them. And we were walking around laughing like hell with them, and it didn't bother us in the least. And you got Soviet in things like that. The bodies floating by with the ship there.
All right, let's change the subject. May I ask you, in a completely different discussion, your contribution to present-day America? Can you tell me the contribution that you made in World War II that created present-day America and, as a matter of fact, Russia, China, Africa? How do you see your contribution in terms of history?
Well, as far as Russia went, we felt that we were up in Tsingtao there. We heard that the Russians fired on an American from one of our planes, and we, as one pilot said, we had our planes still had their guns in them. As one pilot said, let's stay over, let's finish it up, stay right over here and finish it up, because if we don't, our sons will. And I told my folks when I came home from China that we'll be at war with the Chinese in 10 years. And my father said, it's crazy, they're our allies. And I said, no, I said, they're not our allies. The only thing with these people was whoever fills their stomach, that's the ones they'll fight for. And the communists came along and they did it. And we ended up fighting them in Korea. So I personally, I like the Japanese better than the Chinese. They're a little more, I seem to be a little more trustworthy, but I wasn't like the Marines where I came face to face with them like that there.
Stephen First Class Edward J. Olsen, thank you for the very important interview. And congratulations on your contribution to America.
Oh, thank you.